I think we got everybody on board, so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So we talked about the COVID cohort, the increase in participation, and we talked about one idea to try to tap into that, which is engaging new partners, to help us move R3 across the landscape. And another thing that we might want to consider is going online, pushing some more of these resources online. And what are the potential merits of that? What are some of the downsides of it? But one thing we know for sure is that we've seen an increase in demand for these online platforms. So that's what we're going to talk about in the Taking the Content to Them Going Online session that we're embarking on right now. And first up is Alex Baer. He's the Executive Director of the International Hunter Education Association. Before that, he was with Onyx Maps, and he was a member of the implementation work group that we talked about earlier in the council presentation. He's been engaged in R3 for years, and I'm really excited to see the direction that he takes International Hunter Education Association. I think it's already headed in an excellent direction under his leadership, but more importantly, I'm excited to hear about the data that he has for us today. So Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you run with it.
Well, thanks so much, Charles, or Swanee, sorry, and the council in general for hosting this event. I wanted just to do a little personal note. This is actually where I began with my trip into R3, was at a symposium much like this years ago, which is where I really jumped into R3. So this does work, in case you were wondering. So I'm glad you're all here. And thanks for the chance to speak to the group today. So I'm going to pull the shared screen presentation up. And let's see here. So I wanted to start just by saying there's a lot of discussion, and when there's a lack of data, people make up their own data, right? They make up their own assumptions. We all have seen it. It happens all the time. So today I really wanted to start with what we know, not just what we think we know. We can get into that later when we have conversation. But for now, let's stick with some of the facts. So if you haven't seen it before, by the way, this is our new fancy logo. Happy to blast that into your mind first thing. So a few quick facts to inspire some thought and later, hopefully, some questions. So hunter education, obviously, on a national scale, largely impacted considerably by the pandemic, right? You're looking at some serious impact here. Things that were out of many of our control, and many states, and I want to take this moment to say, great job to state agencies, education teams, because what a challenge to go from, and you'll see soon here, primarily, in-person opportunities for hunter education in so many states that all of a sudden people weren't allowed to show up to those. So what do you do? And the adaptation was remarkable. And if you have a chance to speak to somebody who works in hunter education, give them a high five, pat in the back, whatever it is, because they had a lot of work to do to make this all come together, to keep people coming through hunter education. Not only did they do a good job in keeping the show alive, they actually were able to usher more people in. And that is due in large part to online capabilities. So fortunately, this is not 15, 20 years ago, where online hunter ed and Zoom meetings and things wouldn't have even been a possibility. So it certainly is pleasant to know that we can have this opportunity now. So a recent survey, we did one with Chase & Chase Consulting and WMI. This is one of the multi-state conservation grants that we awarded last year from IHEA, and we have some preliminary results to share here. So a lot of these stats come from that work. Also, Kalkomey contributed quite a bit to the numbers here, so I want to give a thank you to them. Recent survey of 40 states, so we didn't get hear back from everybody, as it tends to be, but you're looking at 80% of the states, shows that an increase in students of close to about 15% of students going through hunter education, which translated roughly into about 80,000 more students in 2020 and 2019. That's across all methods of hunter education. It's not just online or the other way, it's just this is all of them across 40 states. We have, so not all agencies actually saw an increase, even when they had online hunter as an option, but we did have, and some obviously did not see an increase, but we'll go over to that map here in a second and show you how it looks. Of the states in that survey, 86% that added something new, right? It may have been a hybrid to in-person and online. It may have just been online, but as long as they added some sort of method to deliver hunter education, those groups saw an increase. And it's important I mention that because the next slide here. So this is the map that was put together again by Lauren Chase and Chase Consulting. This is a great map. This shows the blue states are the ones that saw an increase. And if you're, just quick note, if you belong to one of these states and feel this information is incorrect, please reach out because we're always making this better. But at this point, so we've heard back from some of these states. So don't take offense, just reach out and we'll talk through what the differences might be. But at this moment, we see that the states in blue saw an increase. The darker the color, the steeper the gain. And then obviously the other side of that too, pink into more of a red. Now I want to highlight here because Texas and Florida and Pennsylvania, I know specifically, already offered a number of methods of hunter education delivery prior to 2020. And those states didn't have anything else to really add, right? They did a bunch of changes, and I want to really commend them for that, to make sure things were still working, especially around safety protocols that were put in place by the states. But those states are not in blue here, but the states that, because they didn't really add anything else. So it's not that they really went the wrong direction, it's just that they didn't see the same increase other states saw, because some states see quite a bit having changed or added methods to their delivery. In this chart, we see hunter education moved online in some states. So look at this. This is pre-COVID in gray, and then what's currently in place. This was done about a month and a half ago in blue. So interestingly enough, and again, this is just the data. This is not, what we all necessarily thought coming into this discussion today, but in-person education was still available in, this equates to roughly 30 states, right? We talked to 40 states, 3/4 of that, so roughly 30, is looking at still having an in-person option available to students in some capacity. I'm sure there was a lot of changes to it, but it was still available in some way. And then of course, the all online option, the far right of this chart, shows that currently there's 69% of those states offering this, where before it was only 44. So you'll see a growth in that and a decline in the all in person. Nothing too groundbreaking. We all sort of expected to see that. This slide, though, is interesting because even though these were all available in so many of these states, the choice made by individuals to what they wanted to take for hunter education delivery clearly was online. And I'm certain, again, a lot of that's pandemic related, but when given the choice, people still did take the in-person option when they could, but by far and large, the numbers swayed towards the either newly created or even existing online opportunities for hunter education. So this is a fun one for me. In this case, we're going to show how many of those states, again, the 40 states we spoke with and surveyed, how many of those states are going to continue with what they've currently offered, or how many think they might actually take away what they've grown to offer through the pandemic. So the big positive number here, 37% of those 40 states said, you know what, we're gonna just add. We're gonna go additive on this. We're gonna say, let's have everything we had that we had to contribute and change through 2020. Let's keep that in place, and let's go back to what we had before in case we had to lose some opportunity. Let's just add everything and keep going with all the options. And a quick side note, 2 thumbs up from IHEA USA on that one, because obviously it's all about offering for us more opportunities to go to hunter education. The next number here, 34% of those 40 states said, yep, we're probably going to keep, we want to keep what we think is the new stuff that we've added. If we've added online, we're going to keep that, but we're not necessarily going to go back and add everything we had before back into the mix. But it does show that over 70% of those states surveyed are thinking about this evolution of hunter education. So they are adding things and looking to maintain that new opportunity. 17%, so there's still a number of states, 17% of the states surveyed said that they were interested in going, they said unlikely or less likely to continue the trends that were added through COVID. So if a state had to offer a specific delivery method because of the changing of the times, they're thinking they'd rather go back to the way it was prior to the pandemic. So interesting to see these numbers. Of course, if you can do the quick math, these numbers do not add up to 100%. The box that goes here, we're not going to talk about that box because that doesn't make any sense to me at all, that some states may actually take away and not even off what they had before. We're not going to talk about those states. So COVID impact by the numbers. Again, thank you to Kalkomey for this data and the Chase & Chase Consulting for the help putting this graph together. Year-over-year increase. This is a fun one. I did it by region, right? So no one state is called out here. And this is information strictly from online higher education. This is only the online students. And you can see the year-over-year growth. They all went up. Every category went up. Because every category is up, we thought we'd just show how much every category went up. And in this case, of course, NIAFWA here just blows everybody out of the water and kind of moves the whole chart around because largely because of New York. If you noticed in the previous slide, New York was a super dark blue state on that map image. They have incredible numbers this year, so they're going to move us a little bit. But even without that, you'll see in every region there's a growth in under 18. Which I thought was mentioned earlier today in one of the conversations, and how how younger people are really coming into this through the online piece. But I also think it's interesting that even in the older demographic, right? Think about 50 plus and even 41 and older, plenty of people taking the online and in growth online for that demographic as well. Next one here is just by gender. So we just heard from a couple of groups talking about the excitement around demographic changes in hunting, license sales, and in hunter education too. Year-over-year increase, 2019 to 2020. Not much, I mean, the data is pretty much here in your face, right? We have 60% or something wild increase in female participation with online in the Northeast. Just incredible numbers here. Again, they're all up, but I wanted to show that there is certainly a slant here towards female over male in growth. This one's a little busy, but I do want to show this to you. This is getting more into the ethnicities as they're kind of recorded through online hunter education. Again, broken down by region. It does show that we have upticks in all demographics. These are all, again, percent increases. So you have a large number of people that are in these different demographics that are now into the space through hunter education. It does not mean they're a hunter. It does not mean they purchased a license. This is simply one piece of the story. But I think it starts to get us to think about who the people are that are coming into the mix, that have taken the step to go through hunter education. And are we ready for this, for these individuals? What's next for them? So what does it mean? National R3, so we're talking about R3, right? So what does it mean for the R3 community? I think it's really important. I want to just make sure everybody understands. IHEA, as Swani mentioned, is certainly changing right now. We're doing a lot of work. We have a lot of new services we're looking to offer. We can talk more of that later if we have a discussion around it. But I want to make sure everybody understands that we are very R3 focused. We're great partners of the council, and we're going to remain that way. And I want to, if anybody does want to reach out, please, anytime reach out to us. I'll have our contact information at the end of this. But let's think about R3 together for a moment. What does it mean when you have students coming through? Are they buying a license? Research is happening right now to renew a study from previous that had shown years ago that only 2 out of 3 people who went through Hunter's Ed actually bought a license in the first 6 years. Not a great stat. I'm sure nobody's proud of that stat. We can do something about it, and we're looking at that right now. DJ Case, Southwick Sportsman's Alliance, doing some great work there. Some preliminary work shows that people still want to know, they still don't feel comfortable yet where they can go hunt, and they want to see if they can take somebody out with them or maybe mentor them in the space. Just really nice to hear that through research, not just be hearsay, but that is what people are saying. So recruitment, online can work. Research shows students often feel they aren't prepared to purchase a license at the basic hunter education. Okay. understandable. If you know the curriculum, it's very understandable. It is meant to be a step in the process. But let's think about that for a second. We can get a lot of people in the mix, especially with the online. You're looking at a lot of information, emails, everything can be sorted and trafficked a little differently. And then thinking about how to retain those individuals is going to be the next bullet here. What's next for these students? Is your state ready, right, to think about catering to the large amounts of women that are coming into the space, different groups that have different needs? Earlier, we heard from some great organizations out there that are willing to help make that easier for those groups they're catering to. I think that is important to work alongside them and understand what we think is going to be best to work with these new audiences. So are we ready? Do we have mentoring? Do we have continuing education? This group has already shown that they're willing to take online education for hunting. So do we have additional online pieces? Do we have maybe the next step, maybe it's a hybrid or more of an in-person now that things are opening up again? Those are good questions to be asking each other and asking of ourselves. And if you need help with any of the answers to those, if you're looking to build your programs, please reach out to IHEA. Let us help you if we can. And other partners on these calls as well, I think, are willing to help. Reactivation. This is one we don't talk about as much because it's a little difficult. Let's think about lapsed hunters. If there are folks out there that have not hunted for a while, maybe I'm sure there's a whole bunch of reasons why, but what if they come back in through a hunter education course? They might not want to sit in a 5 or 6 hour in-person event, but an online opportunity at their own pace certainly might appeal to some people. And we've seen from the demographics that even the older generations don't seem to have much of a problem taking this. A number of individuals have gone through those modules online. And the one thing to think about that we'll talk more about at our conference in a couple of weeks, is that the Hunter Ed certificate, if you graduate Hunter's Ed, that is a bit of a passport for hunting around the world. We work with countries all over the world that accept hunter education certificates from the States. So if someone wants to go somewhere else to hunt, or they've moved or coming back, reactivate them. Think about taking this so they can have even more opportunities as they're maybe a little older and thinking what the next part of life is going to look like. Again, they don't maybe need a full class, maybe just a refresher. And online makes that easier, a little easier barrier to entry, or lowers the barrier to entry. That's what I have today. I hope I didn't take too much time there, Charles, but I wanted to get through a lot of that. And I'm eager to answer questions later and hear from the other panelists.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. That was extremely interesting. And Jennifer Wisniewski's getting blown away in the chat over here about that New York phenomenon that we're seeing. So with that, and we are going to circle back for questions, drop those in the Q&A if you have them. And right now we're going to move on to Greg, who's the Vice President of Agency Relations at Kalkomey. So Greg, you want to tee it up for us?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Swanee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. How are we looking? All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm trying to get some thumbs up here from the panelists to make sure everything's okay. Thanks, Swanee. Appreciate it. Always good to double check. Been on too many of these. So anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Greg Gulliver, VP of Agency Relations at Kalkomey Enterprises. Appreciate, again, the opportunity to present today and provide a bit of an update from our company's standpoint within the hunter education community. For those that don't know Kalkomey, we've been in business for about 25 years now, and our focus is on outdoor recreation certification. We provide educational services such as online courses, print materials to our hunter, boater, off-road, snowmobile, bow hunter education, and many other programs to our state, provincial, and territorial partners. Additionally, we offer software solutions such as licensing platforms, event management, volunteer management, certification management products. In the end, we're just here to create, to provide a singular, cohesive, all-encompassing solution to make everyone's lives, including our partners, easier to get into the field. And I want to give a shout out to some of my colleagues you're probably more familiar with, maybe Mitch Strobel, Rebecca Medeiros, and Mike Dean all send their best regards. I'm sure a lot of those attending are very familiar with those three people. So anyway, now looking at the topic at hand, taking the content to them, I'll discuss, what we've seen from a hunter education perspective over the past year or so, and what else we're doing for our customers in terms of, bringing this content to them. So just to kind of reiterate a bit of what Alex spoke about, currently Kalkomey provides online education to 47 state partners and 8 provinces and territories up in Canada. Throughout 2020, kind of as a recap, we saw an overall increase in demand for hunter education programs in each state, province, and program we work with. Many of these programs, as we're aware, adjusted their delivery to one that was online only, from either a blended model or an in-class or in-person model. And what we're seeing now is many of these programs, kind of what Alex alluded to, are either continuing on this trajectory where they're staying online only, and they're also kind of adding back, an in-person component, whether it's that blended model or traditional model based on the circumstances within their state, what they can do. And, as a current note, we have 32 state partners right now that are offering online only. So it kind of aligns to what Alex was talking about earlier on in his presentation. From a statistical perspective, 2019, 2020, year over year, we saw a 133% increase in completion volume, and that's all of our programs across Kalkomey. So we have multiple domains that offer hunter education, again, across the US, Canada, and abroad. And like everywhere else, we saw massive increases to students taking our programs from 2019 to 2020. Looking at the first couple months of this year in comparison to 2020, that increase continues to remain. A lot of that is a result of programs maintaining, maybe an online only presence, and then also being able to adopt and add in additional programs as well to meet the demand of students this spring. So demand continues to be there, which is a great thing for us and a great thing for this whole community. So kind of changing the subjects now, because I know Alex spoke a lot about kind of the picture of the US, but getting into continuing education, we've got this captive audience, and understanding that hunter education is this gateway into the lifestyle. So we knew we had this great opportunity to provide more in the way of content from an online delivery perspective, kind of at a micro level where we can get into specific programs. And this was validated by our students. We had this massive cohort that we were looking to get more information from. And in 2020, over 60% of those students that took one of our hunter education programs expressed an interest for continued education, which is great. They were looking for, trustworthy content. This was an important factor in their decision making. And other attributes that we're very familiar with, from online delivery, accessibility, convenience, schedule flexibility. Those are all contributing factors to, growing this continued education compartment and providing more education as well. It's all about flexibility. And I mean, in the end, this is a great R3 perspective, right? This is a great opportunity for retention, reactivation, but also recruitment as well. So with that, we utilizing our technology at hand and the information we collected from our customers, we began to build out a new platform to host this continued education program. So we started with partnerships. Partnerships are key. We talk about that all the time through this whole symposium. Of course, we're here to collaborate with one another, support with one another. And, we wanted to work with partnerships and industry leaders to bring new content to our customers. So that was our kind of first step, kind of reaching out to partners, creating content with them, utilizing their content, utilizing our platform from an online delivery perspective, bring everything together. And then once everything was kind of built and put together, start engaging this cohort and this current audience and past audience. In mechanisms in which we did that, we were bundling programs, utilizing hunter education as that gateway, and then saying, hey, if you're interested in other programs, you can add on to your online education experience with various topics. We also did some opt-in marketing outreach to the cohort that went through our programs. And obviously digital marketing is a big component of what we do. So what that really led into was the development of Today's Hunter. Today's Hunter is a platform right now that hosts 101 programs. So right now at the moment, we've got two great partners, and we've developed two online programs with them. The first being Deer Hunting 101, the online program brought to you by the National Deer Association. So we appreciate their support. I think they're on here as well, which is great. So we developed that in conjunction with them, and now we're offering that program as a 101 program to continue the hunter education experience and evolution. We also have Turkey 101 as well, brought to you by National Wild Turkey Federation. So we're offering that. And we're currently in the development mode with a couple other partners and bringing their programs into play as well for your students. So we're very excited about all this. These programs are, delivered in a similar format to our hunter education. They contain chapters, assessments, and you get a certificate at the end, which is great. And obviously exposure to these two great, these industry partners. So looking at some of the statistics we've pulled from the past year or so, for Deer 101, 2019, 2020, we saw a massive increase in student registrations for Deer 101. This is from September to December 2019 and 2020 when we launched. I wanted to give a bit of a comparative, but massive increase in terms of students registering for this program, through being marketed to them and then wanting them to add on and get more content. And then this past year alone, we saw just about 42,000 registrations as well for the Deer 101 program, which is fantastic. From an average gender demographic, 80% male, 20% female. And then looking at age demographics, 2019 versus 2020, you can kind of see in 2020 through 11 through 40, a little bit more evenly distributed versus 2019, where a lot of that kind of 31 to 50 kind of slipped into the younger generation, which is great to see as well. Looking at 2020 versus 2021, for the first part of the year, again, 25% increase in student registration, which is great. More students craving additional content, information to get out into the field and feel prepared. Gender demographic splits kind of similar based on the previous year. And then obviously a demographic currently in 2021 that is mimicking what we saw in 2020. So great exposure, great opportunities to get more education in front of this cohort, which is awesome. Just quickly looking at Turkey 101 program. We launched that February 2020, so we saw about 8,500 registrations versus 400 or so to date. Gender demographic kind of staying similar in relationship to one another, and same with age demographics. So again, great programs to offer to the students to add on to their current journey through hunter education. Next, I wanted to talk about a couple of initiatives that we're pursuing to take content to your customers even more. And the first one is Today's Adventure. So building off the Today's Hunters platform, we recently launched kind of a new platform to host a variety of content to add to the kind of educational development experience of your students. Most of these are non-certification type programs, but again, they're addressing kind of the niche market and demand that a lot of students are looking for to build off their educational experience, whether it's hunting or boating or off-road or whatever. They're looking for more consumable content. So we've built this kind of platform, which launched back in the Q2 of 2020. And it's a subscription-based model where they come in, get what they need if they want to stay on, to get more programs, get more value out of it. That's what it's built off of. And we've seen some great success to date. We've got a lot of subscribers with almost 100,000, and we're continuously investing in the content and value of this program. So we're trying to give more and more and more content to your customers to, again, get them feeling prepared and get them ready for, their next adventure. One of the other initiatives is, a big proponent of our kind of base culture and base offerings as a company is interactive online education. And it's something we've been pursuing from a hunter education perspective pretty heavily over the past few years. Most recently, we've developed a fully interactive hunter education program which is currently under review by the IHGA, which is great. As a company, our focus is on e-learning. So, we continue to push ourselves to ensure we are staying ahead of both the delivery, but also the educational curve, and to provide the best and also expected learning style from this cohort. So we're always looking to grow and develop and stay ahead of the curve and make sure we're offering, our state partners and clients and customers cutting edge technology that needs to be there to continue to stay ahead of the curve. So we do have some groundwork that we based iLearn to Hunt off of. It was kind of based off our iLearn to Boat program, which has been in market for a few years. And we've taken our kind of learnings from that and applied it to the iLearn to Hunt program. And, as you can see here, even in 2020, having a traditional online program and having this interactive program, we saw 33% of students chose to upgrade it. So they're looking for something new. They're looking for something that's more common to their educational style of learning. And we saw great growth with that. And then at the same point, keeping the integrity of the educational experience, where, their assessment scores on average were at 92%. So they're learning at their pace. They're digesting the content in a consumable manner. They're getting these interactive assessments that are very active participation based, and they're being able to go through it at their own time. So as a result, we're getting very educated students with high test scores. And again, it's just, they're craving more and more, which is great. And lastly, I think it's important too, because we work with so many great partners and clients, student satisfaction to us is how we gauge how we're doing. And, as many programs last year experienced a tremendous amount of volume, so did we. And we were able to pivot and make sure we were kind of set right in the sense of making sure we're meeting our customers' demands. So if they had to call us, email us, we were delivering that same customer service and that same level to everyone, pre-COVID and pre the increase in demand. So we're very proud of that. And it's something we're always looking to maintain and increase. And I think it says a lot about, who we are and where we put our value into as a company. So that's it for me, Swani. So appreciate the opportunity again for being able to kind of present on some of the continued ed and other new programs that we're offering as a company, and look forward to some more discussion later today.
Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate it. That's pretty wild, the increase in demand for that Hunting 101 course, especially the deer one. That's incredible. We're going to circle back to some questions on that. I know I wrote down a few. So moving along, before we get back to our questions here, we're going to turn it over to Ben Berka. Ben is the president and executive director of Scholastic Shooting Sports Foundation. And they have gone down the route of an e-certification for shotgun coach training, which is really interesting. We actually used it for some of our interns in Georgia. It was a great resource, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the progress that they have going on.
Great. So my presentation is very focused on a program that we developed to meet the needs of your basic volunteer shooting sports coach for youth programs. So just a little timeline about the project here that we've worked through. So this actually started pre-COVID. We started working on this project in 2018 and just looking for a better way to help reach volunteer coaches. And I'll get into some of those reasons here in one of my later slides. But so we started out by reaching out to partners. There's several state agencies, probably many on this call, who we worked with to kind of flesh out the idea. Worked with several other non-government organizations, many in the shooting sports who do their own sorts of education. So really kind of hatched the idea. We wrote and received a multi-state grant, which was very helpful. And so in 2019, we got to work really on kind of the nuts and bolts of the program. So sitting down, writing the curriculum, editing a lot of that, gathering the assets. So the photos, we did several video segments and a couple different video shoots, and put together the learning management system. So we partnered with Kalkomey on that, which has worked out great. And finally launched the program in 2020. So I think it was our meeting, the R3 meeting in Omaha where we launched this, just right around that time frame. And of course, COVID happened. So it was actually a very good time to be in the business of online education. So this program is 2 parts. So it's part online and follow up with a range day to finish the certification. So we'll get into that. So before we jump into that, I just wanted to give a quick, just some background about our organization. So SSSF, as we're pretty well known. So we're a national nonprofit, and we're really focused on youth development. And so the vehicle for youth development is shooting sports programs. So we really kind of look and feel like other ball sports programs, just with shotguns and rifles and pistols. So a typical year will serve about 20,000 youth and about 5,000 adult volunteers. And that's really the focus of this education project, is how do we recruit, retain volunteer coaches to help get our programs and keep them growing. This 4 athletes per 1 adult volunteer has been pretty consistent throughout the years. So it makes sense, if we're going to grow, we need to continue to grow our volunteer base. So we provide a number of tools, training, just general administration for all of our teams. We host a number of tournaments throughout the country. And again, the focus is very, very much on that team aspect. So the 2 programs we have is number 1's the Scholastic Clay Target Program. So it's trap, skeet, and sporting clays. We also have the international versions, international skeet and bunker trap. And then we have the Scholastic Action Shooting Program, which is rifle and pistol competition on static steel targets. And so it's a combination of speed and accuracy is kind of the name of that game. So jumping into the coursework here, again, I mentioned it's 2 parts. The first part is online. And again, the beauty of this, the beauty of working with Kalkomey and their platform is the content's available 24/7, 365. It's compatible with all your favorite devices. And we have 2 courses. So you see in the photo there, 1 course is for our shotgun coach training, and the other is for action shooting. So 2 distinct different pathways that folks can take depending on what kind of team they're going to coach. Both courses have 13 units. And again, we knew it was going to be a very comprehensive course. So essentially what we were trying to replace was would have traditionally been done in the classroom with PowerPoints that would take a day and a half. So you're looking at 12 to 14 hours of classroom time that we're just putting online now. And it's much more convenient, start and stop as you wish. But again, it's a very comprehensive course. So we wanted to make it engaging and entertaining. So we took a lot of time and effort to have good images, to have good videos that tie into the content that coach candidates are going to be working through. And we wanted to offer it up at a reasonable cost. So we decided on $75 and felt that shouldn't be prohibitive as an entry point for any volunteer. So there's a couple links there. I think I'll share those again at the end, but the first one is the landing page to start taking the course. The second link has a pretty comprehensive FAQ for anyone interested in learning more. So the second part, after coach candidates finish the online coursework, will be the in-person range day. So both the shotgun course and the action shooting course have about 4.5 hours. So the idea was we can offer this locally. Folks can drive in that same day, drive out that same day, so they're not incurring any overnight travel costs. There's a kind of a local group there, so there's peer networking involved. And again, we wanted to keep that cost fairly low, and really that's determined by our state partners locally who are doing the range days and what they're covering. Some will provide snacks. Obviously, cost of clay targets or ammunition sometimes are included. But again, I wanted to keep that cost fairly low. So typically that's between free and $50, depending on what's being offered. So just some of the reasons that we jumped into this. First of all, we wanted to develop a better program for youth shooting sports coaches. So Obviously, we hope that everybody involved in the shotgun course signs up with their Scholastic Clay Target program on the action shooting side, joins the Scholastic action shooting program. But in reality, coaching's coaching and shooting sports are shooting sports. So we wanted to sit down and really do the best job we could to develop content and a curriculum that's going to fit the needs of the coach, no matter what the program is. Second thing, obviously, we wanted to increase the reach. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to continue to grow the program. We have to have volunteers to do that. And then we have the aspect of churn. So not only are we adding volunteers to continue to grow, we have to replace the ones that left. So as you might imagine with any youth sport, the typical coaches are parents and grandparents. And so when their children age out, typically they move on to doing other things. So there's constantly a need to replace those folks. Content consistency. This is one of the key pieces of feedback we continue to get from the state agencies that we're working with. And they're very happy about the online course, how that, it's the same, presented the same way, no matter who takes it. We know a lot of classroom-led courses in the past, and I've been guilty of it too. You teach to your strengths, you teach to what you know. And so again, this curriculum was put together with a number of experts to be able to cover everything very well. The range days, again, they're very consistent. So there's standardized checklists that are used that our trainers are expected to use. So everybody can kind of stay on script and hit what they need to hit and not get too far off track. Cost and convenience. So a lot of the traditional training courses out there for youth shooting sports coaches would take an entire weekend. Tuition costs could be $200+. Not to mention the travel expenses that the coach candidates would incur to get to and from. And finally, the important part of the range day is the local networking and the support. So by working through state partners, we're reaching out to experts in all parts of different states. And you all in your respective states know your people better than we do as a national organization. So if we can work with you to work with your volunteers, I think that just makes a lot of sense and helps you become a support network for the volunteers in your states. And again, getting new coaches involved with other experienced coaches really helps strengthen the entire youth shooting sports community. Just some of the demographic information on folks who have been through our course. It's predominantly male. The average age of our coach candidates is 47, and 80% of our folks coming through the course are over 40, which I guess may not surprise you if we're thinking about parents and grandparents of teenage kids. So, that's mostly who we're hitting there. The Train the Trainer class. So this is kind of our key event that we do when we're working with any new partner, working with a state agency or other key NGO group that wants to use our coach education program to help reach more shooting sports participants. And this is where we as national staff with SSSF and our programs will come and basically do a 3-day workshop with the folks you will have as trainers in the field. So the way this looks on day one, the trainer candidates will take the range day, and that will be taught by the program staff of the Scholastic Clay Target program or Scholastic Action Shooting program. The second half of day one, we cover all the administrative aspects of teaching the course and administering the course, working through the Kalkomey tools, event manager, and such for scheduling range days. Second day, we spend entirely with the trainer candidates on how to teach the range day, and there's lots of opportunities for coach candidates to rehearse the various lessons. And finally, on day 3, we bring in 1 or 2 waves of brand new coach candidates that have signed up to take that local class, and the new trainers will get a chance to work with those coach candidates through their first certification, kind of under our watch. And so if they need support from us or they have questions, we're there to help. So again, this is really our priority. We've been at this for about 16 months now, so we're still working on building capacity. So the states where we do have range day trainers, we're up to 21 now. You can see the asterisks there where we have either state agency or NGO participation. So again, if there's anyone on this call who's interested in getting more involved in reaching youth shooting sports teams, we'd love to hear from you and have a conversation. Just our statistics here to date. Again, COVID made it very challenging to conduct many of the trainer events and range days. But despite that, I feel we've been pretty successful in 16 months. We've been able to do 14 trainer events. We have 74 certified trainers, boots on the ground. We've conducted 82 range days. And on the online course side, 956 have completed the online course. There's another 271 in progress. And if you look, about half of those have completed the range day. So again, that underscores the need to get more trainers on the ground, to be able to reach all corners of all states to help folks finish that certification. So that's all I've got for the course. There's my contact info, a couple links for information, and I'll turn it back to Swanee.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. That was really informative. I think it's a great course. I love the fact that there's an online option with that hybrid approach. So we're going to bring everybody back on screen here, which means Alex, yep, there you go. Let me get us in the correct view so we can see all the smiling faces. And we're good to go for some questions. Alex, do you mind circling back to the question that you already answered from Tom, so everybody can hear it?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you didn't see it, because I don't know how I think I'm messing up some of the systems here. I tried to answer the question quickly on the side, so not to distract anybody else privately, and I feel like it just took the question away. So if you didn't see the question, it was about the timers on Hunter Education, and let me see if I can pull up the questions. I can.
I'll read it off to you. So Tom Ryle from up there in Washington said maybe it's specific to Washington State, but here there's a time component to completing online Hunter Ed. It seems to be a barrier that students can't move at their own pace and that they have to wait for the system to allow them to progress in the course. Are you seeing this feedback from students?
And I want to reiterate, that really is a great question, Tom. It's one that's actually come up quite a bit recently, because this year, almost all the online education is going through our accreditation process. So the review process that that goes against all the standards that we have. So we make sure that all the courses are meeting those requirements to maintain the reciprocity across the state. So this is coming up recently in the timers. And I can tell you that some of the courses that are, most of the courses that are available right now have a timer component to them. And I believe the reason is to make sure that people have enough time on every question to make sure they can't just blitz right through the whole thing and take the test at the end and say, yep, I learned a lot. I think, but I think I have this right, that I believe that as courses are moving more towards an interactive component, those standards are a little different. So as the courses change the way they're delivered in more interactive format, I believe timers fall off in the standard. So things are actually, that's another evolution in Hunter Education, right? Things are still moving that direction. So because the delivery methods there, I believe timers are no longer going to be a concern. I see Greg nodding a little bit. So I think this is in the conversations that we've had recently. So things are moving in that direction. So hopefully it won't be a thing much longer, but I haven't heard that from students, but I have heard of the people say they've heard it from students. So that's the grapevine.
Well, here's you a student right here. You can hear it from me. I went back and, I did Hunter Ed. I came through a very traditional pathway getting into hunting. And so I did Hunter Ed as a kid in person, drove a long way, sat through the course, made 100. But anyway, when I went back and started the job as the R3 coordinator, I wanted to go back through, and I actually took the Kalkomey version of Hunter Ed to run through and look at all of the content that was in there. But I did notice that I would get done before the timer let me up on there.
Yeah, and that's I could speak a bit more about that too. I think our good buddy Dave in Washington commented here, but yeah, it's mostly from a regulatory perspective based on the state requirement. That timers are in place. You're either going to have kind of a required time course where there's minimum allocated time for the program or there's not. And that's basically dependent on the jurisdiction. But going to feedback from students, it's our number one source of feedback, really, if you categorize it. Students, they want to be able to go through programs at their own pace, ultimately. They don't want to be dictated by timers. But however, we have taken certain surveys when we get kind of that feedback, and we've gone into groups, and for the most part, people understand the need for timers. I mean, hunter education is important. You're going through firearm education, you're learning about different components. There's a massive safety aspect to it. So a lot of folks understand that there is need for timers and regulation. But from a customer perspective, we hear about it every day.
It looks like we're getting some reinforcement in the chat here. Colleen Payne is agreeing that she hears that frequently from students. One thing I wanted to circle back to with you, Greg, is we saw those big increases in hunting 101s and the increase in demand there. Why do you think that the age evened out in the following 2 years as compared to 2019? We saw that the big hump there for like your late millennial age class, and then in the following 2 years, 2020 and 2021, it seemed like it was much more evenly spread.
A lot of that has to do with the delivery methods in which kind of COVID's produced. So programs going to online only, a lot of programs that might have been offering an online only solution beforehand also reduced their age limitations to accepting, students that are maybe 10 as opposed to 16 plus. So that alleviated some of the age gate barrier in terms of getting into hunter education. At that rate, we were seeing an explosive amount of adoption at a variety of age demographics, as Alex showed as well. Thus, they're being exposed to these one-on-one programs at a younger age than more traditionally versus the numbers in 2019. So that would be just from a volume perspective, where that's why we saw that greater increase in lower age groups.
Okay, great. Ben, it looks like we have a question for you as well. Eric Brown is asking about any concerted effort or partnership effort at a higher level to get any of your participants out hunting in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously our focus is target shooting, but we also have kind of a secondary mission to continue to open doors and create opportunity for youth to continue in whatever shooting sport or hunting opportunity they have. And I would say the best way we've done that is working with other state agencies, for example. Our partnerships that we have with DNR and Game and Fish agencies, I think is the biggest positive we have. So one of the things that we do is we provide data systems. So all the membership registration that comes through us, if we have a partnership with the state, they have access to those data. So they can reach out to folks, help let them know about opportunities. And obviously the agencies are much better connected with direct hunting opportunities locally than we are. So I would say that's the best approach. We've also had some conversations with outdoor mentors to try to get some things rolling and more formalize some of the success they've had in Kansas. And I know they're working in Iowa and other states, trying to kind of connect the dots and facilitate that however we can. But yeah, we are very much in support of that.
Okay. And I want to get some general feedback from the three of you. We've talked about how this, things were already starting to move in an online direction. We've already started to see some upticks there. More people provide opportunities there. And then it seems like COVID really pushed us in that direction. Where do you think it's going in the future as far as the online platforms? Are we headed more in an online direction? Are there benefits to that? What should we be careful about and what should we be looking for as we move forward?
A small question, Charles.
Long-winded.
I'll take the first stab. There, you guys can pick up all the slack I dropped. But it seems to me that, and we're doing some work right now to dig into this to really see what the best retention, method, what the best delivery methods are for retention of the information, right? Because that's always the goal, is make sure everybody's actually learned something from these courses, right? It's not just about going through and then saying, well, that's good, I got my card. So it's really important to figure out what is the best style for different people, and just preliminary looks at that. And I'm assuming we're going to find this, but we'll see what we see. The data wants to speak, but it seems as if we're going to be going to more of an additive approach, where we just make sure we offer several different solutions, because everybody, just like a timer's question, right? Some people want to go faster. Some people want to go slower. Some people want to do it in person, depending on the individual taking the course. I think it would be remiss of us to say, let's just make sure it's all one or the other. It's just not going to go that way. I don't think that would be the best practice. So thinking about hybrid, there's a lot of new hybrid opportunities that are out there that's come out of the pandemic piece. I think that's probably going to have some momentum to it. Teaching, I think a big piece will be bringing our Hunter Education volunteers. There's over 40,000 of them in the country. What an amazing resource for R3. If you think about people looking to teach people how to hunt and shoot, I think it's going to be an evolution for that group also. Become more involved, maybe with some secondary education opportunities in person, maybe even teaching them how to do some of the hybrid pieces.
Great. Do you have anything to add, Greg or Ben?
I'd say just what we've seen, and obviously we're working with our partners to facilitate the delivery method that best suits their needs, obviously. But I feel what you touched on, Alex, is everyone learns at a different pace. Everyone's comfortable in different situations. So kind of alluding back to his presentation, just, I think offering more avenues to become educated is going to benefit everyone. I think in today's new age, obviously I wouldn't say it's new age anymore, but technology certainly comes into play. There's an expectation there, but I think there's a lot of tradition in higher education. And there's like you said, I took a traditional higher education course, and there's still going to be a large appetite for that. And there's a massive need for our instructor base as well. So I feel, whether it's traditional, a blended model, or online, I think there's value to all three. And it's just how you effectively manage them and, deliver them. And I'll just say one thing about online only too. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's not a result of COVID. It was just more circumstances of it. So I feel that we're seeing some great benefits of it. We're seeing some elongated benefits of it through continued education. So I think everything should be on the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think from just talking about coaches in the shooting sports, there are certain things that we can continue to do online. Basic information, just talking about tips and techniques and those sorts of things, or maybe a hybrid type of solution for more advanced coaching courses. But when it comes to troubleshooting and communication, so for example, teaching a youth athlete to hit a clay target, or teaching them the different trigger control techniques to hit small steel targets at various distances, that's something that has to be done in person. And I think our coaches learn best by doing when it comes to those things. So I think for us, it's going to be both.
Okay, great. Not to pat myself on the back here, but we're right on time. Man, somebody's done a good job with this tour guiding. I do want to mention before we close out this session, one, thank all of you so much for being willing to jump on here and share the insights that you have and the data that you had available about your programs. Tom's cracking me up down here in the chat. I can't help it. I do want to make one mention, just like in our other sessions, we have a lot of other resources available out there. So we have the hunting 101s with Kalkomey, we have the shooting coach training with Ben Berka, but there's a lot of other resources as well. So feel free to drop those in the chat. I know I talked to Mark Norquist with Modern Carnivore lately. He's doing some online education stuff. So there's some incredible resources out there. Hunters Connect with IHEA, a lot of other things that we could look at. Feel free to drop any resources that you like and use with your students or you recommend to people in the chat. And with that, we are going to jump into our next session. Thanks once again. I appreciate it, Ben, Greg, and Alex. So with that, we're going to say goodbye to them and bring in our next people here.